Anyone look YouTube, and in a way, that introduction feels no more apt than today. Oh, sorry about that. Where I'm introducing a new video idea. I'm not sure if this is going to work. I really don't. But I'm sort of going to rattle. I'm going to go through sort of a local Derbyshire non-league scene. So I'm not entirely sure. It's loosely based on an idea by Rainy Toon Talks, who created the Northeast non-league show, and he obviously does an equivalent for the Northeast. But I thought that it would be quite an interesting thing to do to I don't know, to sort of see the Derbyshire non-league scene, and I am going to include Chesterfield in this because I'm quite interested to see how Chesterfield have adapted to that sort of league above. So I'm going to go through the Chesterfield signings, the incomings and the outgoings that they have done so far, if I can get that, because I think I'm not going to do this for every club. I might do, but I think for this first episode, we will look at the transfers and sort of guide our video around there. This is very loosely planned, as you could probably tell. So they have brought in so far Vontae Daly-Campbell, Lewis Gordon, Che Dunkley, Paddy Madden, Kane Drummond, Dylan McCarnday, Devon Tanton, Harvey Arujo, and Tim Akinola. So there's some interesting names there already. I think the most immediate one is Tim Akinola, who they got in on a free, and obviously a bit of a risk. He's 23, and he comes from a club called Al Bida in Qatar. Now, how he's ended up at Chesterfield, I have absolutely no clue. He had a relation with Chesterfield in 2022-23 where he played on loan from Arsenal. How he managed to get from Qatar and then end up back at Chesterfield is quite an interesting story in itself. But a lot of the fans will probably know Akinola. He was a very good centre mid during his time at Chesterfield. I seem to remember he was one of the fans' favourites. He was a very good player. Other players, Kane Drummond comes in from Macclesfield, which again, upwards position wise, he's made one appearance so far, but he won the FA Vars with Macclesfield, with Warrington Rylands, which was his club before then. So very interesting to see that sort of transfers they're doing at the moment. It seems to be a mix of inexperienced and experience, because we've got some 20-year-olds, 23, 19, 23, 22, 23, 23. Yeah. And some of them really, really exciting young prospects from the EFL as well. Lewis Gordon, who he's just spent 61 appearances at Bristol Rovers, having spent the last 2 seasons there. He's a left back, quite highly thought of at Rovers, I would say. He was definitely a fan of Joey Barton, finishing roughly mid-table in his 2 seasons there. So obviously had quite a good career with Bristol Rovers. He was also in Scotland under 19s and Scotland under 17s, so he's somebody who's quite exciting coming in. Vontae Daly-Campbell comes in from Peterborough United. However, he's still quite inexperienced. He hasn't really made a long stint of appearances. His longest spell has been 9 appearances with Dundee FC in 2022 on loan. So, bit of a risk again. But then you've got a bit more experience. You've got Che Dunkley, who He's been around for a fair while now. Made hundreds of appearances in the EFL. So that'll be interesting to see how well he does. He started 2 games so far at centre-back position. You also got Paddy Madden, who definitely is, for me, a signing which drew my attention, having been promoted last season with Stockport County from this league. And he was a key part of that journey that Stockport took from 2021 to 2024, that sort of ongoing progression, which was in the National League, then in League Two, was one of the best players in League Two in 2022, and then ended up getting promoted last season, where he was again one of their better players. So for me, an absolute star signing. He was Stockport's Player of the Season in 2021-22. Was an amazing player in the National League. Has had great spells in League One, great spells in League Two. Certainly a player I think is well worth having that added experience. But if we look at some of the departures, we've got Lawrence Maguire, Jeff King, Harley Curtis, George Wilkinson, Bailey Clements, Luke Chadwick, and then there's some end of loans. And for me, this is already quite an interesting transfer window. Lawrence Maguire going to MK Dons. I think he is somebody who wasn't necessarily somebody who's immediately struck out for me as a first name on the team sheet, but he was a good rotation players. I mean, 2020-21 is when his most prolific spell in the National League with Chesterfield was, and he came through Chesterfield's academy, and made 150 appearances for the Spireites. So, in a sense, a bit sad to see him move on sentimental-wise, but it probably was about the right time to go. Jeff King, again, another player who you wouldn't quite say was there. He made 95 league appearances, considered an attacking midfield, but also centre forward. Very good at the set pieces, but again, more of a rotational player last season, only making the 19 appearances. It wasn't until it was the season before 2022-23 when he made 39 appearances, but it was much more of a mainstay. So looking at them transfers, roughly what you expected, probably a club at the calibre of Chesterfield to make. That's certainly something that is interesting. If you look at their start so far, Chesterfield have made a wonderful start to the season. Obviously, they've been buoyed on by that promotion that they received last year in the playoffs. The opening day of the season was probably not as good as some fans had expected. It was only a 1-1 draw in the end against Swindon Town. They then went out the EFL Cup to Derby, even though they beat Derby quite comfortably in pre-season. But then, for me, the result which obviously would stand out to anybody looking at the League Two results is Chesterfield beating Crewe Alexandra 5-0. Now, away from home as well, that just proves that I think Chesterfield can be more than competitive at this level. They also beat Man City's under 21s on penalties after a draw in the EFL Trophy. Very good result, that one. I imagine most fans are happy. And so far, they're actually unbeaten in the league as they drew 1-1 with Salford City. Probably a bit more of a disappointing result, that one, I would say. Seeming Salford had a man sent off. One of them games that they probably should have got 3 points, but didn't quite at the end of the day. So for me, I think if we look at it, it's pretty much unbelievable of how good Chesterfield have been. I say unbelievable. I did predict Chesterfield to get promoted, back-to-back promotions. However, whether that transpires is a whole other question. But it would certainly be interesting to see where Chesterfield go. Anyway, I'm keeping an eye on Chesterfield. They're not in non-league, and this show is mainly going to be focusing on non-league. I'm focusing on them. Currently dwelling 9th in the table, because I want to see if Derbyshire clubs can maintain going up from the National League to the League Two. One thing I would say though is Chesterfield is sort of unique. It isn't a standard non-league club. Your Sutton United, your Harrogate Towns that have come up, the Barrows that have come up over the last few seasons and managed to stay quite comfortably in League Two. Chesterfield have been in the Football League for years, and they have that whole infrastructure. They are a Football League club in all but name when they're in the National League, and now even with that tag on. So for me, I do think Chesterfield is a club which will probably is back where they belong. If we're seeing a club like Alfreton managing to get to League Two, which is quite unlikely, admittedly, they may get to National League, but as a whole another league again, then I would like to see if they'd be able to get the same results in that league. On to the National League North, because there is no Derbyshire outfit in the National League at the moment. And I'm going to, first of all, take a look at Alfreton Town. Now, Alfreton Town had a really mixed bag start to the season. You may have watched my prediction video earlier and seen how sort of mix of sort of results they had, because they started quite slowly. They lost 3-1 against Southport on the opening day. They then beat Kings Lynn 3-0, then drew against Leamington 2-2, drew against Chester 2-2, and just yesterday beat Needham Market 2-0. So a bit all over the place at the moment. I would say that Alfreton are sort of one of the clubs that you would typically expect to be in the playoffs, but they haven't made the greatest start. They've not been a flying start. We'll come to the other club, which has made quite a decent start and have slightly slipped a bit lately, of Buxton. But I think Alfreton at the moment are just looking to build on last season's performance. They reached the playoffs, the sort of playoffs. They're very good at aerial balls, the long throw-in, set-piece dynamic. It's all very much Route 1 football played quite fantastically well. I will just look at some of Alfreton's transfers for you Red fans out there who may be wondering what my views on some of your transfers have been. Firstly, I'm looking at the first thing that strikes me is a player called Ahmed Salam, who has been brought in from Manchester 62 in the Gibraltar League. Is that not a risk and a half? Yeah, that sounds really, really interesting. And I'm not going to lie, I don't know too much about him. He was at Alfreton before, interestingly, for 2022-23 season, then went to Manchester 62 and now has come back by the looks of it. But again, he wasn't an amazing player. I don't think that's being uncharitable. He was 50-50 when he was on Alfreton before. But again, that was time post-COVID, very, very difficult to sort of, for a youngster to be able to get into the rhythm of football during that time. David Moyo, very successful player at this level, very, very good signing, I would say. A Zimbabwean footballer who's come from Chorley. He has been playing less and less recently, but you sort of look at his time at this level when we're going back to sort of his time when he was with Brackley Town, I think is the notable one for me. I mean, you look at South Albans and Hemel Hempstead there in the National League South, so it was sort of different league. But Brackley was where he did quite a good job. And if he can replicate what he did in Brackley, although that was about 10 years ago now, we're talking, then he will certainly, for me, be a shrewd signing. I don't think he's going to be someone who plays every single week. It doesn't look to be the case anyway. But they also brought in from Chorley Billy Whitehouse. Now he's a player I've also rings a bell. He have just come off a fantastic spell with Chorley. 128 appearances, scoring 11 goals for a winger. He's a bit of a tricky winger who can use either foot, take set pieces, can play at fullback. Really got some immense skill, talent, potential, whatever you want to say. He's got a great attitude as well. He is a player who I think is quite an exciting signing to make, actually. Now, what he did at Chorley, he didn't quite manage promotion, but I did think that he was one of their standout players for me, and is somebody who I'm looking really forward to seeing play. I'm not sure how it fits into Alfreton's style of play, wingers, with their quite route one style of football. Obviously, you need a good throw. But yeah, Adam Anson, again, got a great deal of National League North experience in that player who comes in from Southport. Don't know why I had such a big pause there. And I mean, he's already, if we look at him, had quite a progressive career. Started off at Wigan's Academy, and then worked his way through the Northern Prem League time before winding up at Chorley. And then he's recently been at Southport since 2020. Towering centre-back. Very, very good to have a centre-back of a sort of that height. Got Max Hunt as well from Derbyshire outfit, fellow Derbyshire team, Buxton. Again, he's somebody I was mentioning in my predictions video. He did well with Buxton last season, did well with Yeovil before then. So he was also at Derby's Academy, I believe. That's why his name rings a bell to me. He is certainly somebody to keep an eye on and see how much game time he gets at Alfreton. But I do think he's somebody who's got a vast experience at the league above, and that's the sort of signings we're looking at. People who have been in the National League North for quite a while, who are looking for that sort of wanting that next stage in their career. And finally, we've got Jed Abbey, who sort of breaks the mold of that signings. Yes, he's been in the National League North with South Shields, but whether he's much younger than the rest, he's only 22, other than the ones who came from Gibraltar. And he hasn't really had that much experience, only a season in it was with Telford United as well. But he's had a rocky start to his career, so that's, in a sense, a bit of a risk. They got rid of Sean Brisley, Max Ram, Matt Reed, Jordan Fulis, Kennedy Diggy, and Joe Stacey. The first, Matt Reed is an interesting departure. How he is still going in football, I do not know. Same with Sean Brisley. Jordan Fulis is a player I'm really surprised has left the club. I admired Jordan Fulis quite highly. And obviously he's gone now to Guiseley in the league below. But he was somebody which he's had loads of appearances in the National League North. I thought he would have fitted their profile quite now. He made 280 appearances in the National League North, on 79 goals, including 5 National League North playoffs, like National League North playoffs, and also in the National League playoffs. That is a vastly experienced person, and I'm really surprised that he's not stayed at the club. He was with Boston before as well. They did quite a good job because a Boston fan was telling me how much they highly rated Jordan Fulis as well. So to see him step down a level is probably the most surprising movement out of them all at the moment for me. So yeah, that's Alfreton Town's sort of overview. Billy Heath doing what Billy Heath does best. We're looking at Buxton now. Now, Buxton started the season and very, very, they were fantastic at the start of the season. If we just look at their opening day of a fixture, they beat Leamington 2-1. They then beat Farsley 2-1. They then beat Darlington 2-0. So at the 20th of August, if you look at that point, Buxton were absolutely flying. They were phenomenal. They could grind out them results. They were doing incredible well. I remember looking at my phone in a Sainsbury's up in Scotland and seeing that Buxton had yet again won a game, and they were in contention for being in the playoffs. And I thought, it's not going to last. It was the first thing I thought. And duly, Peterborough Sports beat them 1-0, and then Marine beat them 2-1. So, in a sense, it's been really quite mixed. They have been fortunate with the start of the season. They haven't had any truly horrendously hard fixtures at the beginning of the season. So the fixtures have been kind to them in a sense. But John McGrath, formerly of Mickleover, I believe, is somebody who I have been impressed with how he's gone about things. He's got the job done. Yes, they may be easy, but you still got to win whatever game comes in front of you. And you look at some of the arrivals, and obviously you can bring in some Mickleover players having been there before with Ben Salt or Will Truman. But some of the other interesting things is Man City's under-21 goalkeeper True Grant, who's only 18, has come in. You've got Ethan Mann, who's a Stockport under-21s player. You've got Dermy Lusala from Coventry's under-21s. Paul Cooper from Barnsley's under-21s. You've got Liam Ravenhill from Doncaster Rovers, even though he's only 21. So a lot of these players being brought in are very, very young. Ethan Fitzhugh from Banbury at 21. Josh Williams at 24 from Hemel. Callum Lee, 22 from Bamber Bridge. Incredible players being brought in who are young and raring to go. Used the loan transfer market extremely well. The one thing I would question is whether they have enough experience. Only Jack Stobbs has been brought in, who's really quite experienced. The rest of them are very much youngsters, and they have gotten rid of a fair few players. If you look at it, Curtis Weston has gone back the other way to Mickleover. You got Connor Brown gone to Ilkeston. You got Luke Shields to Worksop, Jack McCourt to Ashton, Ryan Qualter to FC United. Sam Minion to Southport, Jack Wright to Guiseley, Durnley to Macclesfield, Osborne to Boston, Max Hunter, as we just mentioned, to Alfreton, Ewan McCohen to Hemel, Adam Livingston to East Kilbride. Basically, what I'm saying, they've lost a lot of that experience that they had last season. So, in a sense, it's a now or never season, if you get what I'm trying to say, that some of the loanees will only be around for half a season or a full season, and will therefore want to try and prove that they are truly amazing. I think they're full season loans, but certainly I think Buxton could be quite underrated this season, looking at some of them transfer activity. And they've clearly brought in some permanent youngsters, which is always good. It's sort of how you keep that train going, that sort of on the gravy train, keep on going. You've got players coming in and then players moving out, keeping that squad young and fresh. And if they can stay in the National League North and prove a successful model, that is a very good level to be at, because you consider Buxton, and it's not it's not a Kidderminster, it's not a Scunthorpe, it's not a Boston of last season, it's not a York of a few seasons back. It doesn't have that infrastructure. It's not a Brackley or Chorley or an Alfreton, which can play on their names. They are a team, therefore, that has to almost battle, not as much as some teams like Rushall or teams like Needham Market may have to, but they still have to have that slight underdog mentality that they don't normally, but they probably shouldn't have. They've been in the National League North for a few seasons, but they don't. On to the Northern Premier League. Now, this is an absolute fascinating league, the Northern Premier League. Every year I look at it and get absolutely fascinated. I wish I covered it more on my channel. I really did, or do. The one thing is that it's just, if I commit to doing the Northern Premier League, then it's just so much more effort. They've all played 6 games now, actually. So I said a lie earlier. We're going to start with, who should we start with? Should we start from bottom, or we'll start with Ilkeston? Ilkeston are 8th, so they are a little bit off the playoffs. They got 9 points from their 6 games. They got 1 win at home, 2 draws at home, 1 away win, 1 away draw, and 1 away loss. So real mixed bag, as you can probably tell, but they are the best club at the moment is Ilkeston in the Northern Prem. Not as good as last season. I believe Ilkeston last season did quite a good job. I just need to check, but I believe they definitely. They only finished 11th last season. Maybe I was wrong. So they've pretty much picked up where they were last season. They're in that position where they are going to be probably competitive, but probably not too high up the league. So the fixtures that they've had so far, were they winnable games? Well, their opening game of the season was a 2-2 draw against Gainsborough. Now, Gainsborough's got history, but they've been in that league for a while. So, yeah, probably a draw, not a bad result. They beat Mickleover Sport 3-1, or Mickleover FC as it is now, sorry. Again, fantastic result. Mickleover are well established at that level of football. So to beat them 3-1 is very impressive, especially at the Don Amott Arena. FC United 1, Ilkeston 1. Yep, that's a very good result. FC United are a huge fan base at that club. And to go into a space where they get over 1,000 fans, for me, that is impressive. Ilkeston 1, Macclesfield 1. Again, Macclesfield, huge fan base. Just to grind out a point against them is very good. Ilkeston beating Bamber Bridge, probably about expected, I would say that. And Baseford United beating Ilkeston. That is the one disappointment. The 2-1 loss to Baseford, because I don't think Baseford are going to pull up any trees this season. But as you can tell, there's a lot of draws, but against teams that are quite combative teams. I don't think that's putting overinflating them. Or if you look at Ilkeston in terms of everything, they've just kept on going. That's really what I've got to say. The team that has ground out results. I'm not going to go through the transfers because I'm going to show myself as being woefully inadequate at the knowledge of football at this level. But I will just rattle through who Transfer Market have said they've brought in, which may not necessarily be true. Colin Daniel, very, very experienced player. Colin Daniel, they brought him in from Worksop. I'm just doing what I said I wasn't going to do. But I do know of Colin Daniel. He is somebody who's been around for a fair few years now. He was in Burton Albion back in 2019-21. Well, 2019 to 2021. Was with Scunthorpe a couple of seasons back. Lots of football league pedigree. Blackpool 2016-18. It was with Worksop last season and did quite a good job there. He helped. He's had promotions on his CV before, with Mansfield getting promoted from a conference, with Blackpool getting promoted from League Two. He's really one of them left-sided players who can play as midfield, winger, fullback, wingback, or forward. So he's a quick player, likes to defend, retain the ball. You're archetypal, versatile, non-league player, which is somebody which is really quite good. And he's all come back home. He's originally from Eastwood, so that sort of region of football. On to Matlock. Matlock 22nd. They have had a woeful start to the season. They are bottom of the league. They have only drawn twice and lost all the rest of their opening 6 games. Really, really difficult time for the Gladiators. I mean, what is going wrong? I would love to have a guest come in and tell me what is going on, because it doesn't seem like they're being thrashed every single. Well, we'll come to the thrashing later, but their opening day of the season was a 0-0 draw against Prescott Cable. Okay, not a great result. Prescott only got promotion last season. Matlock should probably be doing slightly better than a 0-0 draw, but okay, you take a point. They then lost 2-0 against Whitby Town. Well, Whitby, they're a club which is always at the right end of the table in the Northern Premier League. Always have been, always will be. Well, Whitby right now, you see them in 13th, probably going to be a bit higher towards the end of the season. But then this is when things started unravelling. Hyde United 4, Matlock Town 1. Hyde, okay, they're top of the league at the moment. But I still think to lose 4-1 to Hyde, not a great day at the office. You then rolled round on the Tuesday, the 20th of August, and I looked at this coming in my phone. I was like, oh, flipping out, what are you doing? 8-0. Worksop Town beat them 8-0. And as you can tell, as a Derbyshire lad, I am not happy that a Nottinghamshire outfit has just beaten them by 8-0. Now, I don't care how good Worksop are. I've seen Worksop play before. I saw them when they were playing against Blythe Spartans in the FA Cup. They are very good. They're fast. They're possession-based orientated. Okay, we get it. They're a good non-league outfit with a big, huge budget. But to let in 8 goals, that is humiliating. They did manage to rescue a point against Lancaster City, but then lost 2-1 to Leek Town. And Leek Town ain't any huge club either. So Matlock are really struggling, and I'm not entirely sure why. It's not as if Matlock is some team that is, I don't know, a stranger to the Northern Premier League. They're normally quite good in the Northern Premier League. They have had a new chairman come in. I don't see how that is going to have a huge effect, to be honest. Yeah, the signings don't look too bad, and even, I mean, if I look at the next game is a must win against Spalding United. I'm telling you that now. I'm just gonna look in the FA Cup. It's a must win. I'm looking at pre-season here, and who we got in pre-season? They played against Derby County, lost 3-0. Played against Mansfield, lost 3-0. So, it wasn't best pre-season. I do think if you're in pre-season, you need to probably have a mix. You shouldn't be constantly trying to play the teams above you in the pyramid. On to Micklover. I'm quite a fan of Micklover, as you can probably tell, being from Derby myself. So that's going to be a team I always look out for. And at the moment, they're averaging a point a game. They've got 6 points in 6 games. They've had 1 draw at home, 2 defeats, 1 win away, 2 draws. So really, really quite mixed. I'm not entirely sure where to draw myself on this, because I don't think they've been woeful. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think they've been truly horrendous. They've not been great either. It's been a bit meh, and I think we all expected a bit more from Micklover. If you look so far, they've drawn 1-1 with Hyde United. As I said, Hyde having a great start to the season, but realistically, you don't expect to maintain it. Lost 3-1 against Ilkeston. Not the greatest result, let's be honest. Hebburn Town beat them 2-0. Okay, we get it. Hebburn are on an absolute skyrocket through the leagues at the moment. I saw them play against Belper. And Belper were one of the best teams, right, in the league below last season. And they absolutely slaughtered Belper. It was a horrendous day to see Belper. They lost 4-0, I think, in the end. And it was just depressing because they just ran past them. And it was Hebburn are one of them teams that can put any team to the sword. So, and are certainly a club on the rise at the moment. They then beat Leek Town 3-1. That's not surprising. I'm not entirely sure Leek are going to do great this season. They look like they've had a slightly better start, but I don't know. I'm yet to be drawn on it. They've drawn 2-2 with Prescott. Probably should have got a better result against Prescott. I don't think they're going to be great this season either. And then drew 0-0 with Lancaster City. Lancaster City, typical mid-table, upper mid-table sort of Northern Prem side. So that for me is pretty abject start to the season. If we look at where Mickleover were last season, they're obviously not in the same league. They've transferred over from the Southern League Central to the Northern Premier League. But they finished 5th last season, and that was despite the points deduction. They had a hefty points deduction for some reason. I think the main reason they have lost manager, I'm not entirely sure when that happened. I could have sworn it was halfway through the season. But I do think, I am going to say it now, I think they've underperformed so far. I think they, last season, proved that they could do well. Now, maybe just because the Northern Premier League is slightly more difficult than the Southern League Central. That's no disrespect to the teams in the Southern League Central. I just think this one is a slightly more difficult league to be in. So last time they were in the Northern Prem, they also finished roughly mid-table. I think, yeah, that it seems that leaving it quite late at the moment, which seems to be the issue, is that they're leaving games quite late, and you can't leave every game late. I mean, by Leverkusen do, but that's beside the point. You got to put the game to rest. You can't constantly be playing from behind. So that's, I think, Mickleover's main issue at the moment. If they fix that, then they'll do a great job. On to the final Tier 8, so the final 2 leagues. We're going to start with Belper Town. Belper Town, this is a team who have done amazing this season. They've only played 5 games in the league, but they've won 2 at home, 1-2 away, and they did lose 1 away, but they are still top of the league. They're 12th. So I don't know if it's because Belper are not as arrogant this season, whether the opposition are not as good this season. I'm yet to see. They've not had a lateral switch, interestingly. So they do keep on having to travel up to your Ashingtons and stuff like that. But if I look at the team, it's a strong league. You've got your Bishop Auckland, Ashington doing quite poorly this season, surprisingly to me. Your Dunstan did quite well last season. Your Cleethorpes Town are in there. Your Pontefract Collieries, also quite a big team. Carlton Town normally do all right. Bradford Park Avenue, that's a whole story for another day. But I don't think it's the worst league, but clearly it's a league that's too weak for Belper. So if I just look at the opening fixtures that they had, they beat Heaton Stan 2-1 away on the opening day of the season. It'll be interesting to see how Heaton Stan do this year. I saw them in their playoff final last season. Very, very good team. They look comfortable on the ball. They seem to draw quite a large crowd. Obviously, that's a bit distorted due to the playoff final, but it seemed to be quite a good day, and the goals just kept on coming, and they were so dominant in a playoff final. You thought surely they'd be able to do well in the league above, but not so far. I don't think. They'll put 1-2-1 on that day. They then beat Bradford 1-0 at home. Bradford are rapidly unravelling into a complete mess at the moment, to be honest. Then in the FA Cup, they beat Lutterworth Town 3-1. Sort of expected, I would say. Lutterworth from the league below, so nothing huge there. They then lost against AFC Emily 3-1, or Emily FC, depends what you want to call it. Emily, for me, team which are performing surprisingly well. I'm actually quite shocked about how well they're doing at the moment. They beat Bridlington 3-0 and beat Sherwood Colliery 1-0, which is a good result for me. I think Belper, fantastic. They're getting results. They're getting the job done, which is what the important thing is at this stage of the season. If you can get points now, then in a sense, you're not leaving as much stress. I don't know if stress is the word, but having to gain them points later, because if you've got the points already on the board, they always say better to have points on the board than need to get points later. And the games have been, some have been tight, some have been quite easy. It's been quite a good display, I think, they're Belper so far. And on to the final club of the final league in the NPL Division Midlands, which seems completely bizarre because it's not a... Derbyshire is in the Midlands, right? Why is one of the teams in the NPL East and one of them in the Midlands? I don't know. But Long Eaton United. Now. Long Eaton. You're 17th. You've had 4 games. Drawn. We only won at home, admittedly. So you've drawn your game at home. You're 1-1 away and you lost 2. I think I'm struggling to place what's going wrong with Long Eaton. I really am. Because ever since their relegation, was it 2 seasons ago now, they've sort of not been great. Like, they went up to the Southern League Central, I believe it was, 2 seasons ago, Southern League Premier Division Central. And then they got relegated back with a strong end to the finish, but wasn't that great. So now I'm in Northern Premier League and Midlands. So surely regional football is a bit more, or more regionalised football, probably more akin to a budget of the size of Long Eaton. But they're struggling again. No, not as badly as Grantham, I must say, in the league. But yeah, that is not entirely what I was expecting. If I just go through the games that they've done, they lost 1-0 against Wellingborough. Now, okay, Wellingborough are a decent outfit. Although, because they're riding a crest of promotion, I believe. And you never want to... If there is one team you don't want to face on the opening day of the season, it's a team that has been, when you're relegated, is a team that has just been promoted from the league below. Never want to do that, because they're coming in thinking you're... Say, for example, I'll use a football league term. Say Luton got relegated, but the team they wouldn't want to play on the first opening day of the season would be Derby. Because Derby have that, or Portsmouth. You got that momentum coming in, and you got that scalp. Although, to be fair, Luton's probably not a good example, because I don't think anyone sees Luton as a particular scalp. But you get what I'm trying to say. It's one of them things. It's it's not a good opening game of the season. Then they drew 1-1 against Quorn, which not a great result, to be honest. I don't think Quorn are a great team at this level. I think they're pretty boring, pretty mediocre. They then beat Boston Town 3-2 in the FA Cup preliminary round, extra preliminary round, sorry. Again, probably nothing too much. Oh no, it was the preliminary round, sorry. Yeah, I mean, it was a close run affair, but against Boston, you sort of expected to win. Then Coleshill Town beat them 3-2. Now, I don't think Coleshill are either that good, to be honest. I think they're also a pretty mediocre team at this level. They then lost 2-1 against Stafford Rangers in the FA Trophy, so an early exit in that competition. That's not what you want to see, although I think Stafford are a good outfit. Then they beat Leicester Road, Hinckley Leicester Road team 3-1. So that's probably the only decent result so far. I think the issue is they've not been at home. Once they start getting at home, maybe they'll be able to get a few results together. But at the moment, I'm seeing it's quite a difficult turn of form at Grange Park. Whether that continues to be the case or not it's hard to tell. If you are a fan of any of these clubs, please do let me know what your viewpoint is. Do you remain optimistic for your upcoming season, or are you a bit meh? If you've enjoyed this video, please do let me know. I don't know whether to carry on with this one or whether just to make it a one-off thing, because I'm inclined to think it's not going to be that popular. But if it is, I will continue it. Anyway, goodbye for now, and see you all in the next video.